Welcome to the second episode of the Orlando Dads Group podcast. I am Nicholas Izzy, and I'm here with my two other co-organizers, Floor and Nate. How are you guys doing today?
Doing
Pretty
good.
good.
Good. I'm
Pretty
glad.
good. Pretty good. Can't complain. Well, I mean, I guess I really can, but
Who would
I'm not
listen?
going to.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Well, today we have a pretty good show. I it's been a couple months, I think, since we recorded this, but it was a really good webinar that we did with Margarita Donies. We have some clips of her. She is a trauma therapist, and she works for the National Therapeutic Alliance. And we had the privilege of having her on with one of our webinars and be able to talk with her just specifically about dad stuff. We went generic a little with some parent stuff, but I think a lot of it had to do with how dads would be dealing with trauma and how that trauma might affect their kids. So if you want any more information about them, we'll be giving the website and Facebook and Instagram out again. But it's the National Therapeutic Alliance. So it's nationaltherapeuticalliance.com. And they also are on Facebook and Instagram, National Therapeutic Alliance. Again, the woman we talked to was Margarita Donies. And here are some clips that we have of the webinar that we recorded a couple months ago.
For dads who have gone through like trauma, like how can they, like, I guess, deal with the traumas that they're going through? Of course, talking with the therapist, that definitely helps to move past those things. But how can they navigate their fatherhood life with their children and families and try to keep up with responsibilities and all of that while still dealing with their own monsters inside,
Right. So the struggles of everyday living, right, with
Yeah.
trauma. You got to pay attention, which I think is hard for a lot of people to really have mindfulness.
Hmm.
It sounds like a really simple, like it's not easy to do. It is a simple concept, but it's not easy
Hmm.
because we live in a very fast-paced world and we're always going to the next thing and the next thing. Um, but you've got to pay attention to where that trauma is showing up, and it's sometimes it's very subtle. I find that men align a lot with irritability and anger.
Hmm.
Sometimes they shut down, they reject, they don't want anybody around, they kind of close off.
That's me.
It's a general. I mean, I've seen it a lot, so you're not alone. I think it's a masculine situation.
Hmm.
It's just biological, and it's okay because men are supposed to be more aggressive. That's part of your nature, right? So it makes sense that you would go to rejection and anger and irritability. But if we're thinking about fatherhood or we're thinking how it's going to affect our relationships or anybody around us, that's a bigger deal because if it's not healthy that you pull away and just handle it on your own, that's not healthy, depending on the size of the issue. But it's worse if you are hurting others because of your pain.
Hmm.
So we have to pay attention that when we are irritable, frustrated, angry, hurt, whatever it is, and now we're not just lashing out and doing things we don't mean. Are we rejecting others? Are we pushing away our partners like unnecessarily? Like when they don't, I'm not saying that there aren't factors that can cause arguments or for a man to even step up and say, this is my worth. I'm talking about when there's nothing on the table and it's your triggers, that it's your stuff that is kind of flooding the room, right? It's just kind of spilling over. And easily we may just feel very justified in our actions because the moment we got triggered, we responded. And the trigger was always there, but it's very easy to say it was them that said this. And because you spoke to me that way, I have a right to tell you XYZ. And now I can be louder. And then again, the masculine will go into those levels and then power.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's just something that's there. when it becomes ill used, that's when it's an issue. And you'll know because your partner or your children will have reactions to that.
Mm-hmm.
And whether, very easily, I think men can get triggered by crying children, because the crying disrupts their nervous system. I mean, it does for mothers too, but I think because we grow up embracing pain more often in our feelings, we're kind of used to it. So we normalize it. With most men, it's not normalized to like share your emotions like that. So then a crying child, female or male, can trigger him more, especially if he's trying to put in a rule or
Mm-hmm.
discipline. Again, I'm generalizing. Not all guys are going to fall in the same category,
Mm-hmm.
but that's an example. Okay, why am I triggered by my daughter crying instead of like me trying to realize why she's crying? Still discipline, but understand her.
Right.
So that's a little example. There's many, but I would say generally pay attention to the interactions and how you're feeling when they're reacting, or how you're reacting based on how they're feeling. But you've really got to take note of that. And it often happens all the time. You're just, at this point, by the time I'm telling you this, it's normalized in your life, even though it's not healthy. Or you may notice, like my son and I never get along. Maybe you have an older, a teen or something. There's always a clash. There's always an issue. Well, I'm not saying your son doesn't have an issue. I'm saying you need to look in the mirror, because I'm going to be very blunt. You are the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So because you're the parent and you're the adult more than this 25-year-old who's also an adult, but you're more of an adult,
Mm-hmm.
you carry a responsibility. I find in not just men in general, when children become adults too, the parents they stopped. I don't know, maybe it's a culture or generational. I'm a Hispanic culture. I don't know if it changes across the board, but I'm pretty sure I would say Hispanic or Caribbean, this is very common. The parent stops having this responsibility of the parent. They kind of stop growing or healing. They think like their job is done.
Mm-hmm.
And then the adult child doesn't feel supported or like there is a backbone there from the parent. I'm talking about emotional. I'm not saying they have to support them financially or nothing. I'm just saying emotional, moral support. And when that stops, the relationship has an issue, because this 25-year-old, probably kid still, is still growing, exploring, figuring out that, maybe the parents didn't even go through.
Mm-hmm.
And when we stop taking the responsibility to heal and grow, there's always going to be issues, because now I can't, if I looked up to you, now I don't have anywhere to go. How can I go to you if you're not a continuous evolving motion? And so I would say this when I was 26 and I had my first daughter. And of course, everyone's like, oh, because you're so young. Of course, you have all this motivation. And so now I just turned 38 and I still say the same. Okay. You have a responsibility to your children.
Mm-hmm.
When you decided to have them, or you were surprised and everyone decided to bring this child into the earth, you were going to get triggered 100 times more by your children than a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there for a reason. So I can talk a lot about that subject because I feel very passionate about continuing to do your parent role, even though it evolves and changes. Like maybe you're not, they're not under your roof anymore. You're still that pillar.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of parenthood. It's part of even leadership, right? If you think of leadership, we don't look to our leaders for them not to be pillars or examples or bring us new information or guidance. So parenthood is kind of the same thing. So when you start as a parent to work on yourself, go to therapy, read the books, listen to the podcast, doing whatever it is you're doing, you're continuously providing, you have knowledge that is kind of filling up there. So every time you talk, as you have that relationship with your son or daughter or children, they can tell when you can have a conversation with a person who like reads a book or listens to podcasts or audiobooks, or it's just kind of like always looking for ways to improve themselves versus a person who's stagnant. You can tell, even in social and networking events, you can tell that.
Right.
And so I really encourage parents, dads, men a lot, because I think women are easily more led into that world. And I think men create a bit of a resistance because they have to relinquish a little bit of ego
Hmm.
to be taught. And it's hard. It's hard. I I always had a very strong masculine energy to me growing
Hmm.
up, and I think it's because I took after my dad more than my mom, who's about a little bit more passive.
Hmm.
And I've had to learn that. One of the biggest things I've had to learn is to surrender the ego and allow myself to flow and learn. Because I don't know it all. I like to think I do, but I don't.
Nate, did you have a question?
No, I was. She had me thinking. For instance, I was thinking about the fact of, uh, as you're getting older, because I read a lot of stuff too and look at a lot of stuff. So as you're getting older, you're realizing, as your parents aren't really those superheroes that you felt they were.
Right.
Because when you're a kid, your parents can do anything wrong. Like even my dad and my mom separated, but I still realized I held him really high. So when I had expectations of him, even after I became a parent, I still had expectations that I thought
Mm.
he would do, but he doesn't. So it's really weird. But I'm realizing it was my problem more than his problem. He is who he is, no matter what. Same with my mom. My mom's who she is, no matter what. So it's me trying to figure out, I guess, my place in it all and my kids' place in it all. It's just really weird,
What's
realizing
what's what's
they're
weird
thinking,
about it? And what's weird
oh,
about it?
like, I'm trying to give you an example. Like my father, right? My father remarried, moved to Texas, all this stuff. He's not very close to my kids. They talk to him every now and again, but I always thought he would do more. You know what I mean? But that was my expectation, at least I thought. But then again, he left me when we were younger too. So I guess I'm not. I guess I'm over expecting more.
Is
If
that who
that makes
you are? Is that who you are though? Are you the father that goes above and beyond and gives your 120%?
Yeah, but I think I realized I did that only because of the fact of what I was lacking, because I felt like I could have had more, and even now I'm like, man, I should have been closer to him, just like I should have been closer to my stepbrother who passed away, my stepsisters, et cetera, et cetera. But I wasn't, and it's not my fault. It's really because my parent didn't put us together, like pair us together. So I realized, because I have a daughter that isn't with my wife, I realized I pair my kids together whenever my daughter's here visiting. I make sure they do stuff together on purpose
Yeah.
because I don't ever want them to feel like they don't belong, and I don't want her to feel like she doesn't belong because she's the one coming in and out of the situation. She comes in and she's with her brothers, and then she goes back with her mom and her stepdad, and vice versa. So I never want her to feel like she left out, but I also don't want the boys to feel like she doesn't belong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone needs a place where they feel they belong, and you're creating that environment as a responsible parent.
Well, I'm trying my best. I don't know if I'm doing a good job, but
I mean, I don't think we get a grade on it, but I think you're already doing it, so that makes sense, you know?
yeah.
And I was just gonna say real quick, the people who see the gaps in the story and they choose to close the gaps, you guys are the ones that are changing things for the next generation. So that's the positive side. The downside is that we feel alone doing that because there's no one who did it before us. But God willing, um, your children will follow that because you are a model of that. Another benefit.
That's awesome. Like I never really thought about it that way. I always thought like, I want to do better than my father, and I know that I am, but to hear it that way kind of gives it a little bit different light. It's like you're closing those gaps. Um but and then also like I can also feel like what you just said is like you're closing the gaps. You're already making the change for the better, but you don't have the support because nobody else did it. Like you don't have anybody to be like, oh, this is who I looked up to, like so
Mhm.
it's crazy to hear, but it brings like a different light to the situation, I think. And I never really thought about it that way. So thank you for sharing that, because it made me feel better, just hearing it. It's like, oh, you know what? Maybe I am closing the gap.
You're welcome. No, and you don't have someone maybe in your family to look up to, but it's not to say that you can't, make new relationships, new connections
Right.
and align yourself with people that, could be a mentor or someone you end up admiring.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, I feel that, yeah, I came into a family where I saw gaps in many, many, many places. I feel like I've been in conflict resolution since I was 13. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about them, but it always felt very lonely because I had this level of increased awareness that they didn't have. And when I came into a place where I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of that's kind of setting this up, but I need support. I started to, not just the podcast or whatever, like people that I would follow, even more local folks that I admired. I started to get close with them. I started to take mentorship in different areas, not just psychology, right? Not just therapy. Take mentorship in different areas, because if they lacked it, they couldn't give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's impossible, right? To expect it. This is me rationalizing, right? So if you don't have it, you can't give it to me. If you don't know what a healthy relationship looks like, mom, dad, you can't give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
So but I could have other examples of what that looks like. So now I'm out setting myself out socially. When I network a lot or go to different social events, I'm always connecting. And eventually I ended up, linking with other females who were married that were, kind of contemporary to me, that did have healthy relationships. And then I did the same thing with therapy and eventually got a mentor. And, I did the same thing with business. There was a lot of things that I knew I could do, but I didn't have the guidance.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone just because your family didn't give it to you. And I think a lot of us also they kind of get stuck that as if the family was the thing. And I believe in expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Blood's not always the one that gives you what you need. And that's kind of like a harsh, realization,
Yeah.
but you're not alone. You just have to be open to the fact that it may not be your blood relative that gives it to you.
Yeah, I think I mean, very well said, because of my family and on having that example, from mainly my father. I think when I went through the divorce, I couldn't really go to my dad for advice because he wasn't the right person for it.
Right.
Which is the reason why I looked for groups, dads and all that stuff, to who I can talk to, just somebody who I can relate to, who maybe can understand me.
Yeah.
This is how I found the Orlando Dads group. And I mean, meeting the dads through the group and the opportunities that has led me to, and other dads, just to different conferences. And I mean, hearing stories from other dads, like there's a lot more people that I've been able to find that I can relate to, and vice versa. Because of, that expansion, just kind of reaching out and looking for somebody who understands what I'm going through, So, the guys here on the screen are my, positive influences, the good dads that I look up to, so this is where I found my motivation, like these are my positive examples, so yeah, I mean, some of us, like you said, that some of us don't have that in our own family, but what we've been building here is kind of like our own little family, of dads, where we can kind of just support each other and hold each other accountable. So it's been, yeah, this is my expansion right here.
My day job is as a high school teacher, so you can
Very
imagine.
triggering.
Yeah, I have to deal with like 75 kids like that during the day. So I realized maybe a few months ago, because it's been really bad this year, I used to take it out on them. I'll get mad at them when I tell them to do it the first time and they don't move. So I had to like try to calm myself down. I'll just like go outside and I come back in. I'm like, all right, you guys, this is what I'm asking you to do. I need you to do it, please. And then they would do it for the most part. But I also realized it's the same thing when I ask them, they're like, hey, let's go hang out. And they're like, well, I don't know if I want to. And I get upset too. So I think more recently, I just say, hey, get in the car, we're going. I don't give a why or when or what we're doing. So half the time, I'm just like, we're going. And they get upset. I'm like, no, you're fine. Go into the car, let's go. And we go and have a good time. But I don't know if I'm doing it right. I just kind of assume.
So we're talking first. You were talking about high school, and now you're talking about your children, right?
Yeah. Because what happens is with the high school, I'm already the high school gives me anxiety. So you could imagine about 25 to 30 kids at a time in each class, and the majority of them don't want to do anything. It's gotten really bad. So I'm realizing because my oldest is 15. I have 15, well, 15, 15, 12, and 9. So the 15-year-olds they're big kids. They're not little. So they look like the ones that I'm with at school, you know? So especially when they're lazy and they're acting like that, the first thing in my head is I don't need you acting like these kids that I see every day. That's the first thing. So it triggers me immediately and I would get really upset. I've gotten better now, over the months. But man, for a minute there, it was really, really bad. Where I would just get angry and I'm like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it by myself, or I'll go do whatever by myself. But I don't want to be like that anymore because I'm taking out my frustrations from work on them. Is what it was becoming.
So
Kind
that's
of
really
weird.
good. That's a really good observation on yourself. Sorry, did I cut someone off?
Hmm.
Oh, um, that's really good observation from your end. Now, I was going to ask you something. Because I heard your statement as, and your realization is, I don't need this right now. So you were automatically saying like, oh, you're not going to do what they're going to do to me because I can't have this much more stress on me,
Yeah.
right? So I get that. This is the hard part about working with people. So you work with high schoolers and I work with, clients, and sometimes I facilitate groups. And, it's the hard part about working with multiple personalities at the same time is that it's exhausting,
Yeah.
right? And that you don't know, they're not all going to uniformly respond to you the way you want them to, as they shouldn't because they're all different people, right? But I would start at home. I know you asked a few questions. So you asked about the grounding and then you went into high school and children. So I'm going to go back to your children at home. Um, can you have moments where you just hang out with the 15-year-olds? It doesn't have to, you don't have to go anywhere. It could be at home and just get to know about like what they're about and what they're interested in. Do you have moments like that? Even if it's a quick breakfast, a coffee. I mean, 15-year-olds drink coffee now. So I don't know, like anything where you can kind of isolate that and it comes from a place of like, I want to get to know what you're about versus just tell you what to do.
I think I've been doing that, but not really thinking about that's what I'm doing. Just because, for instance, they all have their own personality. I mean, they're similar,
Yeah.
but they're not. So
Yep.
I'll go sit with like my son while he's playing video games. I'll purposefully interrupt him and sit in his room and talk to him about his day or something random, like make jokes, laugh, and then I'll leave him. Like, all right, have fun, and I go. I try to do that with all of them. Like today, I went just only my 9-year-old, just me and him went to the playground, just me and him hanging out.
Perfect.
So, I guess I'm doing that subconsciously,
Mhm.
but it's more so of, man, it's for you guys, and I'm trying to figure out how to spend time with each of you individually to have fun because I know they all aren't into the same exact things all the time. They're
Now
just they're just
the 15-year-olds are blended or that they're both yours too.
no, they're both mine. So
Okay.
one just turned 15, the other one will be 16. But they're just all behind each other. They are blended. So I have my daughter has a different mother than my son does.
Right, but they're all okay, but they're all yours. I
They're
thought
all
maybe
mine.
it was your partner's child. I wasn't sure.
No, they're all mine.
So the 15-year-olds are both boys, one boy, one girl, two girls.
No, one's a girl, one's a boy.
That makes it challenging.
Yeah. Well, the girl's the one that's not here all the time. So when she comes, I make sure I take her and do stuff with her, just her, you know. And then sometimes one of the other boys will come, or sometimes they all come. But our weekends are short. She lives in Alabama now. She used to live here, but she moved to Alabama. So her weekends are like 3 days or 4 days. So at least
Hmm.
one of those days I try to do something, even if it's just experiencing something after I get her from the airport or on the day when I got to take her back. I try to do something that's just us.
Hmm.
Um, you know, or I try to just sit with her and watch anime and other stuff.
Do
Just
you
trying to.
guys do you guys ever do activities all together like bowling or something like that when it does fall when she's there?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So why are you doubting yourself?
I have no idea. Probably because of my dad, I guess. Who knows?
I mean,
I
the
just
kids
don't.
at school is going to be a whole other world.
Yeah. You know, it
Yeah.
is. You know, you just don't want your kids to grow up and be like, yeah, I'm not hanging out with that guy anymore. You know what I mean?
You know, it's
Uh,
okay to ask your kids, how am I doing as a dad? I know people probably wouldn't think of that, but it's okay to ask them the same way partners can ask each other, hey, how am I doing this month? You know, you guys, if you're completely vulnerable with each other, it's okay to say, is there anything you would like for me to make better? Something you don't like about me or about the way I lead you, the way I guide you? Um, Leaders do that in offices. We do that in business. We ask our staff if there's any gaps because we can't possibly know it all. So it's okay to get feedback. You don't have to take it. I mean, you can consider it, but maybe they're wrong, right? Like, well, you may not like that, but it's going to happen, right? But
yeah,
it's okay to get the feedback because maybe there's things about you don't know. Maybe you yell too much. Who knows? And they're like, man, Dad, like if you could just tone it down on Mondays and Tuesdays, because every time you come home, it's like you might have one of those. Definitely the females might come out and tell you that.
yeah. She's actually the one that's cool. I'll be like, hey, clean your room. She'll be like, okay. Like, wait, what? My
Yeah, they get
15-year-old,
there.
the other boy, the boy though, I have to like ask him like 800 million times, and he might
Mhm.
do it. And I'll be like, but you just threw it in the. But I'll be like, whatever. And I learned the other day to try to talk him through it, because I sat there. Oh, I got mad at him about throwing his stuff in the drawer, so I went and opened his drawers individually. I was like, look, I feel like I haven't taught you how to fold your clothes properly, so let's do it together. And he's like, rolls his eyes a little bit. I'm like, no, seriously, because maybe I didn't. Maybe we missed this part of the lesson. So I was showing him how to put his clothes away and showing him how to grab the ones that are too small. I was like, give them to your little brother. He's like, oh. I'm like, look, now you got room, you know? So, uh,
I hope it works. My 9-year-old does not give a crap that I did that with her, and she'll be like, "Yeah, I cleaned my room." When it's done in 5 minutes, there is things stuffed everywhere. But you know, age appropriate, I guess. If my 11-year-old was doing that, it would be unacceptable. But it's like it depends where they're at, right?
yeah,
But
because
yeah,
my 9-year-old is where your kid is. Yeah.
right.
My 9-year-old's like, it's clean. I'm like, no, it's not. He's like, yeah. Okay.
You also got to. I know Craig's raising his hand. I know you got to find out what your kids are motivated by. My 11-year-old is motivated by money, like a lot of us, and so we've got to work that out. And my 9-year-old is motivated differently. So everybody's like, I think she likes, what is that thing? Toka Boka. She's a girl. I don't know if boys. I don't think boys play that. But she's motivated by building her house on that game. So we manage that. The other one's like, so you're gonna pay me for that? Like she's a little older. So I was like, if you do the dishes, and then she's like, nope. I said, okay, bye. I saved my money. So
All right, so that was Margarita Donies, who I actually met through a small dad's conference. It was the first one ever, so it's not quite nationwide yet. But she was there, and I thought it was interesting her perspective on fatherhood based off her past traumas, and how much experience she had with it, personally, but also through her clients. And I think one of my favorite things that she kind of delved into was just talking about how us not having that example prior, some of us didn't have our dads growing up, and and we really didn't have that either, that father figure or someone to look up to, or just how to do fathering right. um and we just go based off what, people that we meet, other dads in our community, and really just try to exemplify being a great dad and just being a great person to look up to. And one of the moments specifically I remember, and Nate, maybe you can elaborate too, but one of the specific moments was when Nate actually asked or she was talking about it, and Nate made a statement about, I feel like I'm being a great dad, but how do I know I'm being a great dad? And her response was like, well, you're here, like you're already doing it. You're already changing what your past gave you, by being here and being a great dad. So I thought that was pretty powerful. And sometimes for me specifically was like a moment where I was like, wow, I've asked myself that question too. I feel like I'm doing great. I feel like I'm doing better than what my past has showed me, but how do I know? What I mean, I'm the only dad that my daughter knows. So how can she tell me like, oh yeah, you're doing a great job. This is how you do it. But yeah, I don't know if you remember that, Nate, like that moment, because that was a cool moment. Just being there and watching it and listening to it like in real life time. That was really cool.
Yeah, definitely remember it. Because I was referring to, because I have 4 kids, so I was referring to the fact that there's three. I have 3 here and I have 1 away.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I just assume I am, so I keep going. So definitely a good combo.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was just powerful all in all. And I know one of the other dads who were on the call too, like it was a time to be vulnerable. We were talking about past traumas here. I mean, things that really scarred us, from way long ago. So, one of the other guys on the call was being vulnerable about his past and his dad and what that did to him and his current state now, and just how she was able to just talk through us like some things was really, it was it was awesome. The call was just perfect. It was great having her on. Huge honor. It was awesome. So I'm glad we were able to make that happen.
Yeah. No, it was great. The one thing that, well, maybe not the one thing, but I think one of the biggest things is that what she does and what the National Therapeutic Alliance, focuses on aligns so well with our group in
Mm-hmm.
Trying to be a better self, trying to mend the wounds that we may have had previously, and making sure that those wounds don't then get pushed onto our children, but also being, the best self that we can be, so we can be the best father that we can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she was really big on too, like, let's dig deeper. You're having some issues now, whether it's, you're angry a lot or you get angry easily, or you're scared about so much. And, but she was really about, okay, let's dig deep. Let's go way back. Let's she starts like kind of going reverse and picking the pieces apart until she finds like the foundation of the problem. And she's like, okay, your problem is this, and she helps you how to deal with that trauma so that you can almost build from there to be better, to be greater, than what you are now. And you could be great now, but there could be something that is just you're holding on to, emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. And she helps kind of reverse that to like, all right, let's go backwards. Let's see where all of this starts. Like, why do you do this? And then it just stems from something else and stems from something else, and it keeps going until she says, here it goes. This is the problem right here. um and a lot of it goes back to our childhood. It's and we don't realize it until she starts picking those pieces apart, which is really good.
Yeah, she was a great person to have on, and
Mhm.
great resource. So if you have a chance to check out the National Therapeutic Alliance, they're based in Florida, right? They're in.
Yeah, South Florida, I believe.
Okay.
But she does, her and her organization or business does, I think she says they pretty much do everything virtual. So
Right.
she
Yeah.
has clients from all over. But the business is based in South Florida.
Great. Well, we were thrilled to have her on there. So that was definitely a great resource for us and for anyone else who can check it out.
All right. So October is coming up. We're wrapping up September. Summer's officially over. Well, unless you live in Florida.
Yeah.
It's still in the
It's-
mid to high 80s. Humidity is still
Yeah.
kind of here.
Our summer is 9 months long.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have winter. We just have fall for 5 minutes, and then it's like
Right.
summer
Yep.
again. But yeah, as we wrap up, September. We got October coming up. Wow, last 3 months of the year. Just geez, that flew by quickly. We have, of course, some more exciting stuff coming up. Of course, October is spooky season, so we tried to incorporate some of that in there. And then the next event is actually not taking place in Florida, but is a definitely benefits fatherhood. It's the Home Dad Con 2024 that's taking place in St. Louis. Is it, Nick?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep, and that is boy, you could probably talk more about it. I know you've gone in the past and you're going again.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go again. This is actually my second time going. Unfortunately, life got in the way. I wasn't able to go the last couple of years. But so the organization that puts it on is called the National At-Home Dad Network, and the greater group, City Dads and Fathering Together, has done partnering with them for years. And the National At-Home Dad Network puts on a Home Dad Con, which is a convention that is all about focus more on at-home dads, so stay-at-home dads, but I have met plenty of dads there who aren't and can still benefit, because it's all about just being a parent, being a better parent, what to do after your kids are older. There's all sorts of breakout sessions. I remember a couple sessions I went to. One was just specifically about trauma. People coming in and talking about things that are weighing on them. There were other ones that talked about how do you go back into the workforce after being a stay-at-home dad for so long. But it's a great opportunity for dads, not just stay-at-home dads of really any kind, that can come together. It's a 3-day event, or like two days and a night. So it's from the October 17th to the 19th, and it's development, and networking. Dads need it too, so it's a great opportunity. I don't know, I didn't check obviously before we recorded this. You definitely want to check out the National At-Home Dad Network if you're interested. I don't know, to be honest, if there's any more spots left, but it is coming up, creeping up very, very quickly.
Yeah, and if you do miss this one, I believe they already announced their location for next year, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think is in Austin, Texas.
San Antonio, yeah.
San Antonio, okay.
Yep.
San Antonio, Texas. So that is next year's event. If you do miss this one, next year I'm definitely going to try to attend, because I couldn't do this one again. Like Nick said, life got in the way. So. But yeah, so definitely check it out, or at least look into it. It could be something you can benefit from. And some of these dad conferences are, they are just packed with information, and it is an incredible experience. I know when I attended one, it was just, wow. And then the people that you meet is also amazing, to come across dads from literally all over the place.
Yeah.
Some have similar stories like you. Some have more of a challenging story than you have, and then you meet other dads that you're actually able to help by offering advice based off your experience. So it's really cool. It's just one big community of dads who are really trying to be their best, which is really special. All right, and then a couple days after that, actually, I think the last day of Home Dad Con, here in Orlando, we are having our playground meetup. So make sure you bring out the kids. It's at Castle Park, also known as Martin Luther King Park in Winter Park. It's a popular spot for us, very shaded areas. The whole entire playground pretty much is shaded with these massive trees. So check that one out. And then also that same night, we are doing a trick-or-treating event. This is going to be with the organization is called O2B Kids. They're having their O2B Spooktacular October 19th, Saturday. I believe that's at 6:30 p.m. And we're come dressed to impress or spooky or whatever you want to do. But costumes, there's going to be costume contests. We're going to be handing out candy. come meet us at our table, and hopefully we're able to dress up as well. I mean, I feel like we should. It's only right to have some dads dress up. So we'll see. It's gonna be fun. And then what is next?
The next one's the tentative one. We're hoping to finalize it soon. It's for the American Ghost Tours, which hopefully is going to be on the 22nd of October. If you've never heard of it, because I had never had before we even talked about it, we actually ran into this person, Flora. I think you talked with them at not our last Dad's Night Out, but the one before when we went to the arcade bar. One of the people you ran into actually runs one of the tours, right?
Yes. Yeah, so it's a ghost tour around downtown Orlando. The cool thing is that during the tour, we make 1 to 2 stops at local bars to grab a beer and just keep on walking along with this tour. So, I mean, what better during the spooky month of Halloween in October to do a ghost tour with some beer? I mean, that's perfect.
I think the one thing that got me excited was I think in the description when you would send us the email, there was you could use ghost tools like Ghostbusters. There was like ghost hunting tools that they said that they brought out on the tour. So I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm hoping. I don't know if we got to kick out the little box and catch the ghosts. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna zap something. I mean, whatever it is, I'm all for it. It's really cool. And then we'll be finishing off the month with our virtual meetup, which is awesome to have. And one of the cool things is we actually started recording some of our questions for the podcast. So in some future episodes, you'll get to hear some of that. And these questions are done anonymously from some of the dads, and we are here to answer them. So it's really cool. It's a good opportunity for you to go ahead and just, get advice or feedback. And if you're not comfortable with asking the question live on the spot, then we have a place for you to do that. And we ask it for you while answering it with the expertise that's in the call. There's dads that may have had experience with that, or at the very least can offer advice or some kind of guidance for it. So it's really cool. Virtual meetup. It's a place to be. If you can't make it physically, we're there for you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, don't forget to use the meetup link. That's how you can keep up to date. That's probably your best bet, the meetup app.
Yeah, we have all the events on Meetup, including with the virtual meetup. When you sign up, you'll get a link because we do it through Zoom. So you'll get the link to the Zoom to be able to join for that virtual meetup.
All right, awesome. Well, I guess thank you again for listening to the episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and there's definitely going to be a lot more to come, more webinars, other things, and all kinds of stuff happening all over Orlando. Fall season is here, so we're going to try to make the best of it in this Florida heat.
Only thing you can do.
That's right.
Thank you for listening to the Orlando Dads Group podcast. Join us next time as we have our first local guest, Michelle Lipton. She's the author of the children's book, Sprinkletopia. We discuss her book and the book launch party she's having on November 23rd. Find us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram as Orlando Dads Group, and on X as @OrlandoDads.